Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Where Are They Now series of videos that we are shooting at NC Idea in honor of our 20th anniversary, which is this year. We thought it would be awesome to visit some of the early pioneers that we had the good fortune to support on their entrepreneurial journey. So today I am joined by Eric Boggs, who is founder and CEO of RevBoss and a 2014 seed grantee. That's a $50,000 grant. And that's really the flagship grant program that the organization was founded on almost 20 years ago. So, Eric, thank you for joining us today and welcome to Where Are They Now?
It's my pleasure, Tom. Thanks for having me here. I am here. I am still in Durham, and have been for a long time.
That's one of many great outcomes of supporting this kind of entrepreneurial ecosystem work is that great people like you, create your success here and then want to stay here. And not only in creating that success here and staying here, you're sharing that success with so many others. And it's that virtuous cycle. But I tell you what, before we go too far down, I do a little bit of background on this, so I kind of have an idea. But for the sake of people watching, you want to do a quick, overview on RevBoss and what you do.
Yeah. So I'm the founder and CEO at RevBoss. We are on year 10 at RevBoss. Speaking of
Wow.
anniversaries, which is pretty crazy. Actually, we started year 11. Last year was year 10. We're a lead generation company, and we've kind of changed our stripes a few times over the years. We work with B2B companies, consulting firms, marketing agencies, software companies to drive leads and drive awareness. And our strategy is focused on founder brand or personality led growth, whatever you want to call it, which is really focused on trust and authenticity and narrative, because that's what people buy when they buy from other people. Whether you're a huge brand or a small brand, ultimately it's a person that has to buy from another person. And so we help our clients find their audience, find their story. And when those two things lock in, good outcomes follow. And that's leads, engaged prospects, happy customers, and so on.
Wow. When I think about, what you just described and just what's been happening in the tech space, I mean, like you could even say pre ChatGPT boom and the AI boom, right? It was already just moving at, light speed. But now with, the advent, you have seen some changes in your industry.
Yes. The you know we sort of started to see um, changes in our core business, email, 18 months ago, but things really accelerated with GPT-4. And now you've got Replit and Lovable and Cursor and all these other tools. And very quickly, and when I say very quickly, I mean like 6 months, we are suddenly in a world where just about anything that you can do as a B2B service provider, and I'm talking from services all the way to software, it's suddenly pretty easy to replicate it. And if you are listening and you have not tinkered with Replit or Lovable, and you are a engineer or a product person or even curious about that, I cannot tell you with enough urgency to run to those tools and try them, because it's magic. It's magic what you can build now. And so if we live in a world where anybody can build a pretty reasonable facsimile, at least an early functional facsimile of any other product, you're kind of left with some pretty tough questions around what's durable in terms of a growth driver, because like your feature isn't unique anymore. The process that the like marketing hack that is not unique anymore, because we live in a time where things information travels so quickly, and now you can't just know things, but you can actually build things and respond to things just as quickly. So our strategy has basically become like the only thing that you have that's unique is you and your narrative and your story, and you need to invest in that as quickly as you can, because that's the people that know who you are, know what you're about, and trust you. Those are your future buyers, not the people that you can interrupt with email and ads and sort of the old school B2B go to market playbook.
It's curious. I was just recently at an event, and there were a few curmudgeons from the ecosystem, people that I've, connected with down here in the 9 years I've been in this chair. And we were reminiscing like, yeah, if we said we had a cluster, in North Carolina, like B2B SaaS, for so many years has kind of reigned supreme. And then we all, at the same moment kind of had this awareness going like, yeah, do you think that's still going to be the case, 5 years from now? Because to the point you just made, right? If you can dream it, you can build it. And do you really need to buy yet another piece of software or sign up for another SaaS platform when you've got like no code or low code tools to let you make your dreams come true? I don't know. And
Yeah.
and so and if that's and if you're given that premise, right, then is that good for the region or is that bad for the region? Or is it just a shift
Yes. The answer is yes.
to all of
It's
it?
good
Okay.
and bad, and yeah, it's I mean, even like internally, we use a whole assortment of things, and we're always like testing and learning. And a guy on our team, Zach, kind of like just started tinkering. It's like, oh, hey, I think I built a workflow, and we can cancel that tool, right? It's like a $600 a month SaaS thing that we use, and he, over maybe 6 or 8 hours of replit hacking. It's like, yeah, like I rebuilt our use case, and the new thing is actually better. And so it's not just um, building new products; it's replacing the products that you might not use in an exhaustive way, or maybe you've got a point solution in your workflow that's like, actually, no, you don't need that whole thing. You just actually need these few transactions, and that's just an agent or a set of tools that can solve the problem instead. The other thing too, I think it's a net positive for the region and for entrepreneurship, right? Like it has gotten so much easier to start something. I think the inverse of that, it has gotten way more difficult to build and sustain something because there is so much noise and there is like the pace is so fast. But for most people, you don't need to build a 5, 10, $25 million business or $100 million business. I think what we're going to find is an entrepreneurial ecosystem of lots and lots of hyper niche lifestyle companies. And I think that's a great way to start. And some of those are going to grow really quickly into something bigger. But a lot of those will just be new ways that people can live their life and have a lot of ownership and control and learn. And I think that's just really exciting and really wonderful.
It's curious, and it just again speaks to your bona fides, that you understand this better than most. What you described, we're seeing manifest in our application pool, right? So we are on our, I don't know, 37th seed grant cycle, and then we started. You weren't micros, came after you, but we're in our whatever 18th, 19th cycle of micro, and we're starting to see a lot of like very similar ideas, right? Because everybody's now empowered.
Yeah.
So like in a historical sense, like if you had come up with a solution in a traditional two-sided market, right? First of all, really complex, write a lot of code, database management, all that kind of stuff, figure out the different varying channels for demand gen and all of that. Now people are seeing these two-sided market opportunities, and then with AI, cobbling together an MVP. But we kind of get into this issue where like, okay, here's the third application in just this cycle that, sees this gap in the market of, let's say, real estate,
Yeah.
right? And now we have to sit back and say, okay, based upon impact, which are our goals, right? Like, which one do you bet on? And is it even ethical to bet on multiple of the same things, right?
Yeah.
Because technically they could be conceivably, competing in the marketplace. And it's really forcing us to answer some interesting questions as well. But I mean, that's progress, right?
Yeah. I mean, it's a net positive, I think. I think it underscores that, I guess initially it was like ideas are cheap, but can you build it? Can you sell it?
Yep.
And it's like, okay, well, ideas are cheap, and like increasingly, like MVPs are cheap, right? Like, I saw a thing on Reddit that was like a guy was like, I couldn't believe how much we were paying for DocuSign. So I built DocuSign in Lovable or one of these tools. Did he build all of the enterprise, everything that DocuSign can do? No.
Because
Is
he
he
doesn't
the,
need that.
yeah, he didn't build the like go to market for 1,000 users, but you know what? He built a thing that solves his problem, and I bet if it solves his problem, it probably solves thousands of other people's problems, and like that's it. And so like these large incumbents, like they're just gonna like people are just gonna chip away at little niches and little features and turn them into fun little businesses. And I think what is going to become really, really hard, and this is the bet that we're making with RevBoss, is go to market has gotten so much harder. Like everything that worked 3 years ago, it either doesn't work or doesn't work nearly as well as it used to. And so there's this massive go to market reinvention that's happening. And I think where we're going to end up is this is going to sound really weird, and I don't know if I'm right, but think about like Hollywood or professional sports teams or like the music business, right? It's like there's going to be a movie and Tom Cruise is attached to it. Okay, well he's like a big star that people like and people will go see, and so like it's an action movie or a romance movie. It kind of doesn't matter because it's Tom Cruise. I think that we're going to end up in that world in B2B. So person with large B2B audience, it's like, oh yeah, I'm a founder in this thing precisely because I just have an audience that I can sell things to. And it's like a wild world to consider where, capital and opportunities are going to follow, influencers, but like that's already happened in other industries. It's already happened in consumer, and it's coming real, real fast for
So
boring
it's
old B2B.
brand strength, so
Yeah.
to speak.
Yeah.
That'd be interesting to have like kind of industrial rock stars,
Yeah.
right? That like to the public, has no clue who, Joe Flabeats is, but man, in like distributed control systems in these
Yeah.
industrial environments, he's the rock star because
Yes.
he's got
That is the story that we are trying to tell the market and that we're trying to help the market understand. And I use Kim Kardashian as an example, which I hate that stuff. Like reality TV, whatever.
I'm right
The
there
thing is
with
like
you.
you don't need to be Kim Kardashian. You need to be Kim Kardashian for industrial controls,
Right.
right? You don't need 1 million followers. You need the right 5,000, and you can engineer that. And that's where we're focused. That's what we're doing.
Got it.
And it's pretty fun to watch it play out with some of our clients. It's pretty fun to see some people that are just naturally good at it. And it's fun to like learn about all these like weird little niche businesses where there is an audience. You just don't really think about it.
No, I get that. And I wouldn't disagree. I mean, I wholeheartedly agree. I'm seeing it play out in just certain other aspects. I know I have a son who's working for a venture-backed cybersecurity company, and they've already got patented technology for quantum computing, right? Because like conventional cybersecurity in the days of just, tired old-fashioned supercomputers, right? Like if you can break, crypto and with a quantum computer, then how do you secure something like that? But they're investing in certain individuals that are scientists who are leading this work and like building a brand around it. And they just had a big conference where they brought these guys out for the benefit of the attendees. And those were the highest rated events. Those are the ones that people filled to
Yeah.
come see because, these are the big thinkers that are like, how are we going to secure a world, when quantum is commonplace?
Yeah. And they're selling a narrative, right? The
Yes.
narrative has to come from a person. Like, yeah, it's in all of this is like happened really, really quickly. At least it seems from where I sit, it feels like it's happened. I mean, it's been building slowly, but the like manifestation of it feels like it's just been in the past 6 or 12 months.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. And we're seeing it in every aspect. Like I said, just in the solutions that get applied to you, but also just using, AI in the application process, right? Writing your app for a seed grant, for example. And so maybe we can segue here to, okay, this we've kind of saturated now like the present as exciting and scary and good and potentially threatening that it is. But I hope you wouldn't mind if we just went back in time a little bit one of the things we are doing is really trying to codify and strengthen the statewide ecosystem for entrepreneurship, across the state, even though it's, we have a lot of concentration here in the Triangle. And so I'm always interested to talk to people like you to reminisce a little bit, but more from a kind of post-mortem standpoint. Like, what was the ecosystem like then when you got involved? Like, how did you connect with NC Idea, right?
Yeah.
And what was it like? And then reflect on what it is today, and the good and the bad. I don't want to lead the witness here. You
Yeah. Yeah.
open
So,
mic, say whatever you want, but I am
um,
curious.
I can remember exactly how I connected with NC Idea. I did the MBA program at UNC Kenan-Flagler, and they had a program that was all about sort of entrepreneurially minded students and local investors. And so I got to meet guys like David Jones and Lister Delgado and Jason Kaplan, all of whom are still around. Like, I see Lister on the old man soccer field every now and then still. And a guy that was a year ahead of me interned there. And, when I started what was my first company where I was the founder, co-founder, called Argyle Social, this guy, Jeff, was like, hey, you should look into this. Like, they give you free money if you got a good story. And yeah, I can't remember all of the sort of details, but my background locally, I was the first employee at Bronto, like way back in the day. And that company had a lot of success, and I was there pretty early. And I sold an awful lot of software and saw an awful lot of things and learned a lot. And so I had, yeah, like a lot of experience in sort of local um, credibility, I guess you would say. And so, this company that I'd started with a guy, Adam, we won a grant. And to say that it like changed our lives might be an understatement. Because at that point, I just graduated from business school and I was not getting a job. I had lots of opportunities to get jobs, but I was like, you know what? That's not who I am. I just I can't do it. Like I can't have a job like a normal person. At least not for a sustained period of time. And so I was like, well, I'm going to start something and I don't know what it is. And I just started going. And, my wife was working, but, she worked for the university at UNC. And
This was '09, right?
yeah, this was
Sorry
around,
to interrupt you, but I just want to put a time stamp on it.
yeah, it would have been like late 2009. I think we won the grant maybe in like 2010, spring 2010, fall
My
2010.
my records say it was 2009.
Okay. Yeah. Well, your records will be better than what I remember.
Maybe, maybe not, but
But
close enough.
but that $50,000 is both not a lot, but also an incredible amount of money.
Right.
And for me and us at that time, it was an incredible amount of money, and just the validation and confidence that it gave us. We hired a contract engineer that joined the team full time that I'm still friends with. That I met for coffee like a few weeks ago, who hired a guy that used to be on our team. Like, even just like those kinds of networks that sprang out of that, are paying dividends. However many years later, I can't do that math fast enough in my head. But yeah, like it launched us. It launched me, and yeah, I mean, I've said to the folks on your team many times, like there is no greater NC Idea fan than me, because it's
Oh,
had
that's very sweet.
such a profound impact on my career. And at that stage, more than anything, just the validation was probably more valuable than the cash, because I was like, oh wow, these people seem to be pretty smart and they believe in me, and that means a lot when you're early in your entrepreneurial story.
I appreciate you sharing those kind words. And it's funny that last point you just made, that the validation was probably or could have been more valuable than the money. We hear that very frequently, that it's this first external validation, usually the first external source of income or cash, I should say. We've had some people raise some friends and family and then come and get a grant, but that it's kind of an industry marker. And and a lot of the capital stack, uh, they still support us, right? So
Yeah.
Tim McLaughlin from Co-Founders is one of our very cherished and valued reviewers. John Cambier from Idea Fund, Lister was for a couple of years too when I first started. Um, and
I've reviewed I've done a couple cycles where I've reviewed grants. It's a lot of fun.
and it's appreciated, especially when we have folks with your background serve as a reviewer, because you've been on the other side, right? So you bring a certain empathy and authenticity to the process.
Yeah.
And one of the things that you would know as a former reviewer is that, we say no to 90+% because we just don't have that much money to
Yeah.
deploy per cycle. So the thing we struggle with is like, what's the value to the people that get the no's, right?
Yeah.
So it's the feedback, it's the reviewer feedback, and it's weird, Eric. I got to tell you, occasionally I go to a lot of events, obviously, because of what we do and what we fund, and I bump into people that applied and didn't get funded, right?
Yeah.
And I get always one of two reactions. The one I enjoy for obvious reasons is, hey, yeah, I didn't, but the feedback was great, and I'm gonna be back in the spring. I'm gonna do a little more work. But then you get the ones that, yeah, you guys weren't smart enough to fund me, and that happened at this. I was at an event for Riot was putting on, and I met this gentleman. He's like, yeah, I'm not wasting my time with NCIDEA anymore. And I was like, oh, how many times did you apply? And he's like, well, once. I was like, oh, that's curious. Takes about 2.4 times to win one, but you do you. And I said, would you mind me asking you, like, what did you think of the feedback? And, this look on his face, like, what are you talking about? I was like, well, your reviewer portal, there was like a lot of feedback for you. And
Give you some opinions at least. Yeah.
clearly he got the no, and that's where he just
Yeah.
stopped. Right. And I don't want to sound like an arrogant jerk about this, but like, I think if that's your mindset as a founder, as you're trying to build something, you're going to make it harder on yourself.
Yeah.
You got to be curious, stay open, and look at that. But so your involvement, and again, don't let me put words in your mouth, but like once you got that first at Argyle, that kind of the heavens open to you, entrepreneurial ecosystem speaking. How would you say in your transitioning from Argyle? Well, actually, I'm trying to diplomatically tee up your experience at
Yeah.
Argyle, and
Yeah.
I know you share this, so I don't want to be too clever.
No, it's
Think
good. No, it's fine. Um, yeah, the experience was, eh, eh. and that happens. And
frequently.
I think that not enough people talk about it. And the long story, and it's complicated. And certainly I was the founder and CEO of the business, and so I was accountable for decisions and outcomes and et cetera. But without getting too much into the backstory, I got fired by the board that I recruited for the company that I started. And it wasn't a surprise when it happened. It's not like things were going great and they're like, let's get this guy out of here. Like, it was a mess. And, I was a part of that mess. I wasn't the only part of that mess. It was messy for a lot of reasons. And yeah, it was just a sucky experience. And it was embarrassing. It was scary. Like, I had an income, but at that time, my wife wasn't working, and we had our first, and she was pregnant with our second. And so, I was the sole earner for our family, and to go from doing okay to like suddenly not, like, that was what was scary. Um, and yeah, it was just embarrassing and hard and uncertain. And I've hired and fired a whole bunch of people after that. And I you try to like be empathetic and kind, but more than once I've been like, look, I know what it feels like to get fired. like I know, I understand, and I understand it in a way that's deep and unique, right? Because it wasn't a job. It was like something that I created. Like, I had a co-founder, but like, it's like, hey man, that little side project, there's a business there. Let's do it. Like, I kind of initiated the thing. And yeah, it was painful. And, but you learn from that. And it took a while for me to look back on that with sort of the right lens and right context. Because of course there was a part of me that was like, can I say a bad word?
Sure.
Of course there was a part of me that was like, fuck those guys. They don't know.
Yeah.
And you know what? Like, that's still there. Like,
Oh, yeah.
like the guy that's like, yeah, I'm not wasting my time with you. Like, I get it. I get it. And that's not necessarily unhealthy. If that's all you are, then yeah, that's bad. But if
Right.
you can hold spite and like chip on your shoulder in one hand and hold openness and curiosity and humility in the other, well then you've really got something. And it took me a while to let go of some of this and like accept more of the other. And then it just took some time for me to just be have a lot of success. And you think you can go through your life sort of intrinsically valued and intrinsically motivated, but just like a validation of getting a grant early on, I was like, wow, that means a lot. The external action of having an execution
Yep.
happen to you, I was like, whoa, maybe I'm not nearly as good as I thought, or maybe like I did something wrong. And in the reality, it's like, well, yeah, I was an ingredient. They were an ingredient. The market was like the like undeniable force behind everything that is good or bad is 90-80% market. Like the rest of it,
Right.
as long as you don't screw it up, right? And so it just took a long time for me to be able to look back on it and kind of understand it as just like, yeah, it's a thing that happens and go forward. And I'm pretty open about talking about it just because nobody else does.
Yeah, and I think you do. I think you do a great service to the entrepreneurial community speaking about it because it is fairly common, right? And but when you're going through it personally, you feel like it's only happening to you,
Yeah.
and the world is against you, and I always take it in stride because I punched my ticket for the first 20 years of my career doing startups and starting and selling companies, and I've had my share of failures and gut check time, like the time I didn't tell my wife that I personally guaranteed a $2.5 million line of credit for one of our businesses, right? And I thought I got away with the perfect crime until the bank forgot to get one document signed and sent a courier to our house to sign. Like, so I've sweated those payrolls, but
Yeah.
we get stronger for it. And the point I want to make is this: nothing would please us more to be proven wrong,
Yeah.
right? So for everyone that didn't get a grant from us and they're maybe listening to this and pissed off and have my picture taped to a dartboard, you know, by all means, to what you just said, take that little grit, right? That's got you pissed off about it and use it and prove me wrong. Make us look like the
Yep.
biggest idiots in the world
Yeah.
that we missed out on that. The only thing I will say in our defense is that our lens is just a little bit different
Yeah.
than what is assumed because we're really looking for community impact and economic impact. It's not, if I ever get sideways a little bit with our funders in the community, is like they'll look at somebody we funded and go like, I don't know why you guys would do that. We'd never fund that. And I've had to occasionally push back and
Yeah.
say,
Like we're
well,
not we're not an investment firm. We're an
that's not the lens.
yeah.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
Right. We're looking at ways to impact and strengthen the overall economy for the state of North Carolina. That doesn't always mean what are the startups that will go raise a bunch of private equity and have an exit for 3, 4 people, right? And then rinse and repeat. It's great. It's great for their side. And we want a lot of that to happen, but that's not our lens.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, we're still a private foundation, nonprofit,
Yeah.
looking to make the world a better place. So,
Yeah. The other I'll extend to your one point about proving someone wrong, and the caveat about holding the spite and the prove wrongness. Like if you can't take a rejection from NC Idea, who are objectively nice and good people, then you need to go get a job doing something else, because I get punched in the chin every day.
Right.
I get told no way more than I get told yes. And like, and even when things have been the absolute best for RevBoss, like the best times, the best years, it was still so hard, and dealt with like rejections and people not doing things the way that I wanted them to get done literally every day. And so if you can't be in the business of being told no or being rejected or being um, pushed against, then you really need to think hard
Yeah.
about this path, because that is just like resilience is the game. Like if you can't be resilient, then you can't do this. And you know, lucky for me, I had a pretty significant resilience test pretty early on
You
with
sure did.
this sort of thing that happened with that company, and with everything leading up to it, because it wasn't like it was easy up until then. Like it is a grind to build something, and we built that product during the days of like, we didn't have Replit
Right.
or Gemini 2.5. It was like a
Right.
grind. Go to market was actually a lot easier, right? Because you didn't
Right.
have to have much. If you had a little bit of something, people would be like, "Oh, wow, yeah, I'll try that. That's cool." So that part was actually easier. And now it's like the total inverse, where you can build something that does some things really fast, but getting someone's attention uh, is a lot harder. And that's where all the rejection is. That's where all the no is. The no isn't like, yeah, it's not good enough. I don't want to buy it. Yeah, we went with someone else. You're not so like that. That's where the rejection comes from.
Yeah, I believe that. So you experienced that rejection, right? And you took your hits. How then did you transition from Argyle to RevBoss? Like, what was that journey?
Um,
Was that therapeutic? Was RevBoss, like starting RevBoss, like therapy?
um, so after the thing went down with Argyle, the next day I woke up and was like, I feel light as a feather. And I remember I watched like Lethal Weapon 2 at like 10 o'clock in the morning, holding my son. I was like, this is not bad. This is way better than what I was going to have to do today. And so, my co-founder kind of kept things going, and the business, the tech got sold, and like some people had some good came out of it. Like it wasn't, nothing happened for me outside of friends and learning and like, the network and friendship, 10x return, right? Like I got a lot of good out of it, but there was an outcome that occurred and some good happened for some people, and that was really great. Um, but I basically just emailed around, was like, hey, I don't know what I'm going to do next. And I like worked some consulting odd jobs for a while and had plenty of like chances to join teams. And eventually was like, the work I'm doing, it's all kind of tied into like lead gen and like go to market, like plumbing and automation. Like I would come in and like implement Salesforce and Pardot and like build the early V1 of just like lead generation and marketing utilities, like that version of it for that time. And then it was like, well, I bet if I can do this for one person, I bet I can do it for a lot of people. And it just kind of happened out of that. Just solved the problem for a person and figured I could solve it for more people, and just kept going. And a funny thing, Danny Chu, who was a guy that I hired at Argyle, was the first guy I hired at RevBoss. And he came to my house and we worked out of my home office for about a week. And then we were like, you know what? We need to get a real office because like my wife is here and there's a baby downstairs, and like we
Right.
gotta we gotta go do something else. And Danny worked with me at RevBoss for a while. He went off and did private equity and did some things, and he works for me again. About a year ago, he rejoined the team at RevBoss, and so
That's fantastic.
yeah, it's just like that kind of stuff. Like, and even just like take the business and finances out of it. Like, I mean, I love that. Like, I love him deeply as a person, and I know he feels the same way for me. And just, you can't quantify that as an economic development organization, but like that's what that's what your team creates too, is just lasting relationships with people that just live a life together. And I paid Danny his salary, and Danny does that to like raise his family and his children, and like that is just deeply, deeply gratifying and rewarding.
It is. I remember one of my past companies, because we didn't have a lot of money. Our offices were in a kind of a dangerous, sketchy part of Cleveland, Ohio. Let me put it this way: our parking lot had barbed wire going across the top of the fence, and it was key carded, right? So it was only people of our company that could park there. And, as the president of the organization, you're also the chief cook and bottle washer and top salesperson, right? So I was always in and out, in and out, in and out, going on sales calls. And I remember it started becoming like a point of pride and just gratitude when I'd come back from a call and I'd pull into the parking lot and I would notice, wow, there's more cars in here, right? And then I started counting cars because each car for me became this avatar for a family that our company was supporting.
Yeah.
Right? That was an employee who was getting paid a salary, who was making, mortgage payments, putting kids through school, coaching little league baseball. Like, this is how community is built.
Yeah.
Right? To say nothing bad against our big, monolithic companies that, employ thousands of people. That's great. This though is the lifeblood of what we do, and it's the regenerative engine, right?
Yeah.
And that's why we do it. But that kind of that esprit de corps, that relationship you have with him, that's why we now use language like you're in the family. You get a grant from us, you go through some of our programming, we say you're in our family now. And that, with all the good and bad that comes with that, but a whole lot more good than bad. I think
Yeah.
the occasional request to do your annual survey is probably about the heaviest lift we ask. And considering you got like 50 grand free money out of it, we don't think that's that heavy of a lift.
Take 2 minutes and
yeah,
some numbers out of QuickBooks into this form.
pretty much. So, listen, I want to give you a chance to, like I said, I've watched some of your videos and I know you've got very authentic appeal, and it comes from a good place. So I'm going to ask you, I know it's going to sound a little lame, but like, what advice? Think about you 15 years ago, right? Because those are the people we work with every day.
Yeah.
What would you be saying to them in this market and in this environment and with this ecosystem? And then if you have any other advice for us, we try to eat our own dog food here.
Yeah.
And so I always remind the team that we're not immune from the advice that we give others, right? And that's part of the culture that I'm trying to curate here. So I'm open to hearing anything on that front too.
Yeah. I think if I'm talking to me or a version of me, people that want to be where I've gone and do what I've done and I'm still doing, I think, thematically, based on what we've talked about, I think something that took me a long time to understand is it's just a game. It's not who you are. And, I am a sports person. I really love sports of all shapes, and have tried to get myself out of the habit of like using sports analogies for everything, because I work with a lot of non-sports people. But the Tar Heels sometimes are really good, and sometimes they're really bad. But like, winning season, awesome. You keep going. Losing season, fine. You keep going. And I have had some wins, and I've had some losses. And early on, I would have taken all of that very, very deeply personally. And I think when you kind of go through some things and you get a little older and you have some kids and some life happens and you deal with the reality of like building a business, you realize like, oh, this is just a game. And I'm the coach, general manager, captain, or whatever, and I've got to orchestrate a team. And, sometimes the game changes and the team has to change. Sometimes the game changes and you just get the shit knocked out of you for a while.
Right.
And the key is like, you just got to stay in the game. and not let yourself find your total identity in your work, in what you do. And there's a lot of other places you can find it, your family, your faith, your whatever. But yeah, like that is the advice that I would give to people that are me many years ago, which is like, yeah, man, like pour into this, do it, go hard, have fun, have an ego about it, but don't let it be who you are, because who you are is deeper and a lot more meaningful than, the buttons you push and the Zoom calls that you have and the
That's
code.
great advice.
Like,
I'm a poker degenerate. I love the game of poker. And I heard somebody once use the entrepreneurial metaphor through poker, and that is your most successful poker players lose substantially more hands than they win. But what makes the difference in success is they mitigate what they lose on the hands they lose, and they maximize what they win on the hands that they win, so that on a net basis, they're ahead.
yeah,
But you've got to assume and accept, hands you're going to lose towards the goal of winning the game. You just got to learn what you can from the hands you lose and mitigate,
yeah,
the impact. And then
yeah,
that last hand's the last hand. The cards are mucked. Time to go on to the next one.
yeah,
So
yeah.
cool. Well, I can't thank you enough. I can't congratulate you enough. There's so many so many of our our older family members that have been
I'm not
great.
trying to hide the gray beard anymore.
Oh, I would guess I'm older than you. I just shaved recently, and I had to shave it because it was coming in all gray. But the one I'm going to leave the audience with one parting thought, and that is, if you really want to understand one of the things that we do and why we do it, it's because of Eric, and that we have more Erics in our ecosystem, right? And the one thing that all of them, they never will say it themselves because they're too humble. So that's my job to say it. They are so generous with their time. I have never known one of our funded companies deny a request to talk to, again, somebody that's up and coming and be part of that. And if we continue this, we're just going to wake up one day and realize that North Carolina is the best state in the nation to start and grow high impact companies. So thank you for what you do. And I look forward to seeing many more great successes from not just RevBoss, but then like whatever your next adventure after RevBoss is going to be, because I know there's going to be another adventure.
Probably. Probably.
That's
Yeah,
a great way to
appreciate it,
end,
Tom. I
probably.
appreciate the kind words. I appreciate that you invited me to do this. And I mean, as I said, I deeply appreciate NC Idea. It has had a significant impact on my life. Like, I'm public school, North Carolina, all the way through, and like NC Idea like kind of falls in that category of, like government and state and sort of partner type organizations can create so much good for so many people. And yeah, I'm just so thankful to have been a part of it and to continue to be a part of it. So thank you.
Thanks.